Hello and welcome. I'm Jason Payne, and you are watching the 2014 to 2024 Conversion Guide video. The goal of this video is to help you create and publish content for either the 2014 or the 2024 rule sets of Dungeons & Dragons, and to be able to convert between the two. Throughout the video, I will be referring to the 2014 to 2024 Conversion Guide. It's a book that I created, and it's available on DMsGuild right now. It is not an official book or conversion guide, but it is the most authoritative, complete, and detailed set of tools currently available to convert content between 2014 and 2024. Before we go much further, I'm coming at you live from my laundry room because I don't have a recording studio or anything like that. I'm not an influencer or a content creator. I'm just a very passionate indie creator and publisher. I honestly think that I have a face for radio, if that makes sense, which is to say not something that you want to spend half an hour staring at. But fortunately, I've been told that I have a voice for radio too. So between that and the fact that we'll be spending most of our time looking at tables and charts, hopefully this will all work out okay from everyone involved. But this is my very first video, so please have pity on me in the comments, though I do enjoy constructive feedback. So we'll get through this together. Before we begin, let's talk a little bit about what this video will do and what this video will not do. Let's set some expectations. What will it do? For the things that it does cover, it'll make converting most adventure content from 2014 to 2024 very straightforward, quick, easy, no matter what your experience level, skill level, as a DM or familiarity with either of the two systems, it should make it very, very easy, and it'll save you a ton of time. More importantly than that, I hope that it'll give you the confidence to make your own further changes as you and your campaign and your gaming table and your style as a DM feel appropriate. So for the things that it covers, it will do them very well. I can promise you that. There's a great deal of rigor, ton of time and experience running games, designing adventures and content for both systems of D&D has gone into this. So I can promise you a fair amount of rigor to the topics that it covers. What it will not do, however, it's not a conversion panacea. It's not going to do anything with class levels, for example. PCs, complicated NPCs that have class levels, those are things that you'll have to tweak and reproduce on your own using the player's guide for 2024. Conversion, like DMing in general, I feel is as much art as a science. This guide and the corresponding book will take you through the science, and you should still feel comfortable bringing your art to the topic. A little bit about me, my background, and qualifications to be here in front of you. I'm technically J. Evans Payne is my publishing pseudonym. My company, Infinium Game Studios, has been on DriveThruRPG for over 10 years, back when it was RPG Now, even. I've published hundreds of titles between DMsGuild and DriveThru. A variety of things, everything from a one-shot adventure to mega adventures to magic item books to NPCs to maps. I have a homebrew campaign setting, Aqualay, has lots of books, thousands of maps published. My main focus these days is on the Flextail line of books. The goal with these books is to let any DM, any level of experience, any comfort level, they can dynamically generate all kinds of adventure content during a game session with no prep time. What I try to do with my books is to make it fun and feasible for DMs to run a gaming session with no prep, and to help fuel solo adventuring that's as engaging as a traditional gaming table. Couple of dice rolls, no real prep, and boom, dynamic, infinitely generatable adventure content. That's what I hope to make possible for every DM or game master, regardless of talent or experience. The best thing a DM, in my view, can realize is that if you do your job right, the players cannot tell the difference between what you are reading verbatim from a text block in a nice hardcover book published by Wizards of the Coast versus what you jury-rigged out your arse at the spur of the moment. Like, they don't know, so don't tell them. My Flextail books are designed to give every DM that capability, regardless of their improv talent or degree of preparation. That mentality of realizing that the players really only know what you semaphore to them. That mentality really helps in the context of comparing 2014, 2024 rule sets, they're not going to know whether what you're giving them adventure content was, that monster, that trap in the room, the spell you're getting hit by. They don't know whether that was written for 2024 or whether you converted it the night before using this meticulous heuristic that we're going to go through, or if you just kind of winged it in the heat of the moment. So that's a very powerful mentality to keep in mind. Finally, I also wrote the content conversion guide book. It's available on DriveThru now. It's in its second edition. It's a fabulous, thorough, and authoritative set of dozens of tools and thousands of mappings that helps you convert any kind of adventure content between 5th edition, Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2nd edition, OSR, Dungeon Crawl Classics, 3.x Dungeons and Dragons, and AD&D 2nd edition. So if you're here just for the 5th edition conversation between 2014 and 2024, great. Listen on, view on. But if you have old adventures or are interested in old adventures, you want to take old Pathfinder modules and run them in 5th edition, or vice versa, check out the Content Conversion Guide book. I think it's really powerful. It's not perfect, but it has helped thousands of DMs and game masters across the globe, so it might help you as well. So I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since middle school, which is a very long time ago, at least 30 years. And I've been playing since the Back Me boxes, the basic, expert, etc. Red box, green box, blue box. So I've been playing since first-ish edition. I have been a solid collector and avid gamer on and off over the decades. So I'm familiar with almost every edition to a very intimate level. And I've written for 3rd edition and 5th edition. Obviously, I skipped 4th edition for perhaps obvious reasons. But to get on my soapbox a little bit here, just talking about 2014 versus 2024, I think it's useful to understand the differences and where that evolution of editions across the last decade has really, where it fits in with the history of Dungeons and Dragons, because it's worth recognizing that it's evolution, not revolution, right? It's intended to be largely backwards compatible. It's a mild set of changes that enhances the game experience overall, I think. There's, reasonable people can disagree as to whether it's a net good thing, bad thing, whether it was necessary or not. But I personally, I love what Wizards of the Coast did with a 2024 rule set. I think regardless of one's perspective on the topic, I think it is hugely worthy of respect what they did. They had 2014 D&D 5th edition, cultural phenomenon. It's the hobby has never been more popular. Some people, such as myself, still prefer some of the older versions, but 5th edition, the rules mechanics are hugely elegant. The advantage disadvantage system is one of the most elegant game mechanics in all of tabletop role playing. Has its issues, of course, but it's just as an accessible way to play the game, no matter what your level of math. It's wonderful. And it's I think 2014 to 2024, it's very similar to what happened a while ago between 3.0 and what's commonly called 3.5. It's a change here and there, but it's nothing huge. It's intended not to alienate the people who are already using the game. The reason I'm here recording this video, of course, is the fact that I published this conversion guide, and the hustle in me wants to recommend that everyone listening to this video should go out right now. Just pause the video. I'll wait. Go buy it, download it, and then come back. But here's the thing, and I'm going to say this against my own interests. You really don't need to. I'd love for you to buy it. I'd love for it to go platinum or adamantium or whatever. But you really don't need it, especially since there's this video, right? You should go out and buy the 2024 books. They're great. I think Wizards did a great job with them. The production values have never been better. I love the books. Even if you already own everything 2014, which I do, you should still get the 2024 books, even if you don't have an intent to really revamp things for 2024. But I think Wizards should have included something like my conversion guide as part of the 2024 Dungeon Masters Guide. If you pick up, and I understand why they didn't, right? If you pick up a 2014 adventure or other product, you can run it in 2024 without too much trouble. And in some cases, you don't have to change anything at all. Some things will be easier, some things will be more difficult, fine. But mechanical balance in a tabletop role-playing game with numbers and dice is and always has been more of an art than a science. And this is coming from the guy who wrote tens of thousands of pages, no exaggeration, to produce the world's largest and most complete fantasy bestiary, Aqualay Bestiary of the Realm. Go check it out. But 2014 products, they're not going anywhere, and nor should they. Big-time content creators, those authors with the right combination of time and inclination or respect for rigor of the mechanics, and if certainly Wizards of the Coast, they might update and re-release stuff from 2014 in a more 2024 specific format. I've actually worked with a couple of companies, small and large, that have been looking to do this themselves. And I think some of them have kind of come to the conclusion that it's really not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's a lot of going through the details, as we will do in this video. I promise we'll get to the meat of the topic. But it's not worth it, especially for a small publisher. So you're going to continue to see stuff that has more of a 2014 kind of focus, and that's perfectly fine. You'll be able to use it just fine, especially if you go through these tools. So my counsel would be that if you see something on DMsGuild or another site that you like for 5th edition, grab it. Before you try and run something that you've just gotten, you should probably know whether it was written for or updated to 2024. But it's not a consideration, or shouldn't be a consideration, going into the purchase, in my view. Like, you shouldn't not buy something cool just because it hasn't yet been updated to 2024. So that's my soapbox. I promise now we're going to get to the meat of the conversion topic. All right, we get to the meat of the topic. One big caveat or recommendation that I would make before we cover anything in detail is sanity checking. And I'm not talking about a Call of Cthulhu kind of sanity checking. Of course, I'm talking about just sanity check. Everything that we do, everything that you do to convert stuff from old to new in Dungeons & Dragons, you should just kind of give it a gut feel. No matter how rigorous or thorough a given tool that we're going to talk about seems to be, your intuition is the most powerful tool that you have as a DM, so use it. If you use the techniques we describe in this book and video, but you end up with something where the numbers just don't feel right, then trust your gut and make a change. So let's talk about what we can convert. I already mentioned that we can't convert PCs and detailed NPCs with class levels, so things with character builds, class options, backgrounds, lineage, races, other factors of player characters. Those have undergone fundamental evolutions in the latest edition in a lot of cases, so you're going to have to take a look at that in more detail using the player's guide. But these are the topics that the conversion guide does cover. Some of these are used as is. So ability scores, no changes really necessary. You can bump them up a little if you need to, but all these other topics should address the implications of that. Speed and movement, size and type, those kinds of things. That doesn't require much in the way of changes. What you can and should consider converting or tweaking are monster stat blocks. Probably the number one way of bringing things, adventure content, from 2014 to 2024. Difficulty classes for everything that uses a DC. Spoiler alert, they're a little higher, or a lot higher, or should be. Armor class, hit points, save bonuses, save DCs, skill checks, combat actions, special abilities, effects DCs, and spellcasting abilities. The soundbite here, and what to keep in mind if you don't have this book in front of you or don't want to reread this video or whatever, if you're converting on the fly or just don't have the time, just bump everything up a little bit to take it from 2014 to 2024. If you're dealing with a bunch of monsters, add a couple more. Add 1d4 extra monsters if it's like a goblin or a kobold or something like that. Obviously, an adult black dragon, you probably don't add 1 to 4 more of those, but you can bump up the attributes of that one black dragon that you are facing. So let's go through each of the ones. We're not going to cover ability scores in detail because you can use that as is, but for each of the topics here that's listed as requiring some kind of a change, we're going to talk about it in a little bit more. Okay, armor class. And I know we said earlier that you can't really use this book or this video to convert player characters or NPCs with class levels, but quick and dirty, especially for an NPC, if you are facing them in an encounter and that's it, that's all you're going to see of them, or if you just need kind of the basics of an NPC brought into 2024, then you can use a lot of these tools to bring some of their mechanics into play. You won't get the full flavor that 2024 Player Guide allows for feats or class features, that kind of thing. The changes that have evolved the rule system, you're going to need, again, to go to the Player's Guide. But, if you're just looking for what this dude's armor class is going to be, or how many hit points this queen has, you can use these tools to get those changes made. All in the book that we're going through, the Content Conversion Guide for 2014 to 2024, available on DMsGuild, you will see for each of these topics, there's a table which makes it really, really quick and easy. So if your armor class in 2014 was 18, 2024, it's 20. You can see it right there. Really quick and simple. It's straightforward. If you'd prefer, or if you're the kind of person who likes either a quick conversion or a detailed kind of mechanic or formula, those are provided as well. So if you're really, really quick and you had no time today to prepare for your adventure that you're running tonight, and you're running a 2014 adventure, just add 2 to the armor class. It's not perfect, and it won't work in all cases, but it's close enough. Especially at higher levels, that's not a huge difference anyway. There's a more detailed mechanism here. Challenge rating, it's a very loaded topic, right? Everybody's got their own kind of consideration of this, and I can go on for half an hour just on that topic. But the short version is that if you are trying to abide by challenge rating, you can convert it here to say, like, if you're running a 2024 monster, the challenge rating should remain the same. And that's what was covered, I think, back here. Challenge rating, you don't really need to explicitly convert, because all these other factors, the fact that we're giving a monster more hit points, a higher armor class, their abilities have a higher DC, that kind of thing, their saves are better, and the penalties for saves are worse. All these things add up to making a monster still have the same challenge rating in 2024 as its 2014 counterpart. So things are beefier and mightier in 2024. Players as well, PCs, as well as monsters and traps and all other kinds of adventure content. So to keep the same CR, the challenge rating, you have to have more in terms of all these factors. Another way that this armor class topic tries to describe what you can do is, if you are facing a CR 10 monster, then its armor class should probably at least be 17. Again, sanity check this. A CR 10 monster is pretty difficult for low-level adventurers, but 17 armor class, a lot of characters can hit that. So it also depends on the particular monster, right? Like if you're looking for something that is harder to hit and more of a threat, it could still have a CR of 10 versus something that just is easy to hit but has a ton of hit points. So, keep all this in mind when you're converting, but this table should convert armor class, and the heuristic behind it, pretty straightforward. All right, hit points. This is one of the biggest changes, in my opinion. You can bump everything up a little bit here and there, but for hit points, things cause more damage, and therefore creatures in general in 2024 need a little bit more hit points. As a quick and dirty approach, you can just add 10%. So if it had 50 hit points, add 5. Not too thorough. As a detailed conversion, there's this formula, but again, the table allows you a very quick, based on the challenge rating, should have about this many hit points. Legendary monsters, of course, would have even more hit points. You can go through this heuristic you can give it a flat amount of hit points, or you can add, basic. If it's a creature with less than 100 hit points, just add 10%. If it's got 100 to 200, then add 30%. And if it's got more than 200 hit points, then you're going to probably add half again as many hit points, because at that point, you also have to consider, obviously, the nature of the monster or the threat that you're facing and what it's meant to do in combat. Is it meant to soak damage and just kind of sit there and drain the PC's resources? Is it meant to block them against plot progression, or act as a stopping point to let other characters escape? These are considerations that, when we talk about sanity checks, those are the kinds of things that you should keep in mind. That yes, there's this tool that gives you a new number, but what does that number mean in the context of that monster in that scene or that story beat, and what you as a DM want that monster or that encounter to do with the PCs? Is it meant to just kind of liven things up because it's been a boring night of playing for 3 hours and nobody's swung a sword? Or is it really meant to do something in terms of a narrative? I find that even if it's just a random encounter, you as a DM should have that mentality of, okay, what am I doing with this? What are we as a gaming group doing with this? Is this just another combat encounter to give them XP? Or is it doing something? Every good encounter should at least feel to the PCs like it's doing something. Again, they're not going to know unless you tell them. So if you place something in front of them, do so in a way where you don't have to make it obvious. You don't have to say like the troll swings at you so as to prevent you from following the ruffians who are now escaping. But you can set the scene and make it clear passively that while you're fighting this troll who is very beefy with all of his hit points, there's a plot point that's moving away. That kind of thing. So anyway, hit points, increase it slightly. One quick additional thing about hit points. What we had just seen is if you have a monster with a certain challenge rating, then use this amount of hit points as a starting point for reference. You can also say, look, if it had about 180 hit points in 2014, it should probably have 234 or 351 as a legendary creature. This table makes that kind of comparison pretty easy. Attack bonuses. As with everything else that we're talking about, just about, attack bonuses in 2024, slightly higher than what they were in 2014. As a quick and dirty kind of approximation, add 2. It's doesn't get easier than that, but keep in mind that the attack creatures being able to hit more readily in 2024, that's a notion that should be reserved probably for creatures whose focus is on attack actions. So if something's just a spellcaster or just lurking about, doesn't focus too much on combat actions, they could remain at their 2014 attack bonus. There is a table, of course, that based on challenge rating, you should have a baseline creature should probably have about, if it's a CR 12 monster, plus 10, if it's legendary, plus 13. Or you can kind of just add a little bit to it. So pretty straightforward for attack bonus. Attack damage. Again, damage per round, probably going to be slightly higher. Look, just upping attack damage per round, it's a very dismissive notion, right? Monsters are worth more than that in any kind of context. So if it's just dealing out damage, it's probably not that interesting. That said, as a quick and dirty, you can just add 20%. So if it was doing 10 damage a round, now it's doing 12 damage a round. Again, as with attack bonus, you should have this kind of mentality for a monster whose main focus in combat or purpose in an encounter is combat. If its attack actions are not what it overwhelmingly does in combat, then you can leave it at the 2014 value. There's a table here that, as a baseline reference, if its challenge rating in 2014 was 10, then the damage per round, 70 is a pretty large number, but you might want to consider that. Saving throws. Saving throw bonuses for monsters. Again, little bump in 2024 compared to 2014. Quick and dirty, add 1 across the board to every saving throw bonus. If you want to get more specific, use its challenge rating and whether it's legendary to calculate, a CR 10 monster should probably have a baseline save bonus for its ability scores of +5. If it's legendary, it goes up to +7. Pretty straightforward. Again, consider the monster and whether it has a high constitution or has a high strength. If it emphasizes melee attacks or dodging, that kind of thing, obviously, don't make it worse than what it was in 2014. These bonuses should be considered to be on top of what it had in 2014, ideally. So that's for saving throw bonuses that a monster receives. For saving throw DC, difficulty class for pretty much everything goes up. And it really depends on what the DC was in 2014. This is a quick mapping table, not exhaustive, but it's a pretty straightforward mapping. At low levels, the difference is not all that much, but it goes up pretty quickly. In later levels, in 2014, it scaled to about 30, and in 2024, it scales to about 32. Technically possible, but very difficult. skill checks and difficulty class. If I could flip back for just a second, saving throw DCs got a little bit of a boost. You'll notice that skill checks also got a little bit of a boost. Very similar changes, except the skill check DCs tend to be even higher. So for example, saving throw DCs go up to 32 in 2024. In 2024, skill check DCs go up to 35 and scale along the way accordingly. If you're looking for a quick and dirty change, if the 2014 difficulty class is 15 or under, just add 2. Otherwise, add 3 if it's more difficult than that as a baseline. Again, this reflects that PCs, monsters, people tend to have more resources at their disposal. They get higher bonuses for this kind of check, so making the equivalent kind of trap or lock or other challenge a little bit more difficult keeps the challenge rating the same, generally speaking. All right, ability DC. So special abilities like Fire Breath or Turn to Stone. The difficulty class of these abilities, again, gets a little bit of a boost. If you're looking for quick and dirty, add 2 to the DC. Not a huge deal. Otherwise, it should reflect the challenge rating of the source as it's defined in 2014. Again, remember the challenge rating, the general sense of things between 2014 and 2024 is that CR doesn't really change. So a monster, a trap, or whatever in 2014 at CR 8 is likely to have the same CR in 2024. It's just a matter of what the DC is. So for example, that CR8 trap or fire breath or whatever, have a DC in 2024 of 16. If it's legendary, threat of nature, it would be a 19. So again, the scale, kind of goes up to a DC of like 27 or 30, but it kind of increases gradually along the way. There's a detailed conversion here that goes into a little bit more detail. Okay, spellcasting abilities. Most of this topic is covered already via saves and DCs and that kind of thing. For abilities of monsters in particular that recharge on a D6 roll of X to Y, or X to 6 rather, we want to make it a little bit more easy for them to reuse that ability. So this table just kind of summarizes it. Basically, if it recharged only on a 6, then now it recharges on a 5 to 6. If it was 5 to 6, 4 to 6, so add 1 to the range. Obviously, we don't make it 1 to 6 because you want some randomness of not being able to use it in the following round. But other than that case, increase the probability by 1. Okay, the final topic is monsters, not stat blocks of monsters, but monsters. If you're running an adventure and it says 5 Cyclopses, what do? You can convert the stat blocks of those monsters, but let's recognize that a lot of great work and thorough work was done to bring about the 2024 edition of the Monster Manual, the authoritative list of monsters in Dungeons & Dragons, first party, published by Wizards. It is a great book. It's even better than the 2014 version. It's an awesome resource. You should go buy it. So very simply put, if the monster you're looking at from 2014 is called the same thing in the Monster Manual 2024, use the Monster Manual 2024. You can use all the tools in this book, but the chances are really good that in most cases, a little bit more flavor, a little bit more special ability or tweak to the monster in its 2024 incarnation is present in the Monster Manual. So that's the easiest thing I can recommend. If it's there, use it. There are several dozen monsters that don't have an exact analog between 2014 and having that same exact name in 2024. This list that you can find in the conversion guide kind of summarizes everything where there's not an exact match. And in some cases, it's kind of obvious, like Acolyte is really a priest acolyte in 2024 Monster Manual. Not that complicated, but having this reference list can make it a little bit easier. If it's not in this list, then that means that if it's in the 2014 Monster Manual, it appears in the 2024 Monster Manual exactly the same name. So use that in your 2024 game is the easiest way to do it. All right, those are the topics that we have. The complete list of topics that we've gone through and that is in the 2014 to 2024 conversion guide. Those are the mechanics of the role-playing game experience for 5th edition that I feel are easily convertible, straightforward convertible between the two rule sets. Not a lot of changes, as you saw in both cases. It's very straightforward, very doable, very feasible, no matter what your skill level or experience level or comfort level. If you are entering 2024 for the first time as a rule set and you're very used to 2014, don't be afraid. It's very easy and straightforward. And vice versa. If you want to use 2014 content and you've only started playing a couple months ago, there's nothing that should stop you. Pick up the conversion guide on DMsGuild if you are interested in something with a bit more rigor, or just keep rewatching this video and pause the frame and zoom in and see what's on that table. It's perfectly fine. If you want to take your conversion game further, or if you want to leverage stuff from other rule systems, please do check out the Content Conversion Guide 2nd edition, available on DriveThruRPG. Again, it covers Pathfinder 5th edition, Pathfinder 2nd edition, OSR, Dungeon Crawl Classics, D20, or the 3rd edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and AD&D 2nd edition. The tools are kind of engineered with a perspective of converting primarily from Pathfinder and 5th edition into those other systems, but a lot of DMs and GMs have found immense value in converting any which way between any of those systems. Really authoritative mappings, there's an Excel file that has thousands of different mappings for abilities, monster abilities, potions, poisons, all kinds of stuff. So please do give it a try. Once again, I am Jay Evans Payne of Infinium Game Studios, and if you're still watching at this point, I really appreciate you staying with me throughout the first video that I've ever made for role-playing stuff. Hope it went okay, and if you have constructive feedback, I always welcome it. And I hope to see you again on the next one if this one worked out well and is well received. So, as I always say in all my emails and product reviews, onward.